So we have been studying motion in in a straight line, but that's not the most practical case or the most general case. The most real objects move in 2 and 3 dimensions as well, and that's why we need to generalize our description of the motion from 1 dimension or from straight line into 2 dimensions. For example, if you take an example of a football being kicked, let's say from this position, so it takes a trajectory that looks like this. Now let's say that this is x-axis and this is y-axis, or let's say that this is the range and this is the height. So this object is essentially moving in 2 dimensions. Is not so first of all, it's not moving in a straight line, it is moving along a curve. But at any time or at any point on this curve, we can describe its motion or its position with 2 quantities, its range or the distance it has traveled along the ground. Let's say this is ground, the distance that it has traveled along the ground or the range that it has covered, and the height it is at. All right. So although the system is not moving in a straight line, we can describe its motion with 2 quantities now, height and range, or if you like to say its position along x-axis and position along y-axis. Or so this is essentially motion in 2 dimension. As you can see, we need 2 quantities now to describe its motion. If we are considering motion in 3 dimension, we would need 3 numbers, 3 position three numbers to describe the motion of an object in 3 dimension. And although one could always work work out all the mechanics using even in 3 dimensions without introducing a more complex mathematical structure, but but we would use a mathematical construction again. We have seen that we can use calculus to relate actually, and there is only way actually to relate quantities. For example, the only way to study non-uniformly accelerated motion is if we use calculus. Without calculus, we cannot really calculate position and velocity. In a similar way, we need to introduce a new mathematical or a geometrical concept of vector. So when we need to go into more than 1 dimensions, well, you can study 1 dimensional motion with vectors, but it doesn't help us much. It's the simplest case. So if you work without vectors or with vectors, but when you go to 2 dimensions, vectors come in very handy. They're very useful and they help us make it make our they make our calculations simpler, but they also are the most uh, they also help us generalize the concept from 1 dimension to 3 dimensions. And just a little bit a comment about vectors. It's sometimes it's quite difficult to comprehend what a vector means and how to manipulate vectors, but they're very useful mathematical concepts, and they are used everywhere in science and engineering. So we're going to do some basics on vectors, and please pay attention. If you learned the vectors and how to deal with the vectors, you would find it very useful. But before I okay, so let me introduce the concept of vector. You are probably familiar with what a vector is, but let me make more clear. For example, if you go to a store and you want to buy 1 kilogram of sugar, and if you tell the shopkeeper that you want 1 kilogram of sugar, they would understand completely. But let's say that you are a drill instructor and you have a person standing somewhere. For the time being, ignore these lines. Just say that this person is standing and you want that person to move 10 meters. And if you pass the instructions and tell this person to move 10 meters, this information is confusing, is not complete. They wouldn't know which way to move because there are infinite possibilities to move. They can move in any direction, right? There are infinitely many ways to move 10 meters from a given position, right? 10 meters, anywhere in the radius, any point on the circle around this radius is a possibility. So you need to be a bit more specific. So if you tell this person, if you tell this person who is standing here, let me just erase this. And since the person has the sense of direction, let's say this is north, south, east, and west. If you tell this person that move 30 degrees northeast, 10 meters, 30 degrees northeast, and that would be that's complete information. Okay. So we come across physical situations and physical quantities which cannot be just described by their one number, the magnitude. You need to provide additional information. In this case, you need to provide direction. And to represent these type of quantities is what we use a vector, because vector is a quantity with which comes with a magnitude and a direction. This is not the most rigorous definition of a vector. A vector has to have a little bit more than just these two pieces of information, the direction and magnitude. But we will get to that towards the end of this lesson. So far, I just wanted to motivate to particularly those of you who have not heard of vectors before. So, and you can represent a vector graphically by a straight line and an arrowhead on one side, where the length of the straight line indicates the magnitude. For example, if I have two arrows, by just looking at these two, I can tell that this is a longer vector. This vector has larger magnitude. This vector has smaller magnitude. And the arrow points the direction in which the direction, the arrowhead points the direction of the vector, okay? For example, if I have a vector that is pointing in this direction and a vector that is pointing in this direction, I can safely say that these two vectors are pointing in the opposite direction. So this is how we pictorially represent a vector. Symbolically, in most textbooks, you would see a vector represented with a bold face, but I cannot draw bold face on the blackboard. So on the blackboard and in some old books, you will find, for example, a vector being noted with a arrow on top, or a half arrow, or sometimes a bar, or sometimes an underline, and there are probably other conventions. So you need to be, for example, a hat as well. All right. But for our lessons, this is the convention we would stick to whenever writing vectors on board. A half arrow for a regular vector, and then then there is another symbol I'd introduce in a minute. Okay. So the ordinary numbers, for example, when you have 2 kilograms of when you buy 2 kilograms of sugar and your father ends up buying 3 kilograms of sugar, how much sugar do you have at home? You have 5 kilograms, right? You add the sugar together. But if you buy 2 kilograms of bananas and somebody else in the family buys 3 kilograms of apples, you don't have 5 kilograms of sugar or 5 kilograms of apples or 5 kilograms of banana. You have 2 kilograms of banana and 3 kilograms of apples, right? So even in scalars, we have rules of adding things, subtracting. We have algebraic rules for scalars. Since vector is a special quantity, it's different from a scalar, right? And a scalar is simply denoted by a number, a or whatever. So a scalar is just a scalar, just a quantity without any direction, like the amount of sugar or your height, for example. All right. But a vector is special quantity. So the vectors, and like, for example, the scalar quantities like x, y's, all right? Or like we've been discussing before in the case of one-dimensional motion in the calculus, vectors have their own algebra and their own calculus. Vectors have all the rules, algebraic rules for their addition, for their subtraction, for their multiplication, all right? In a similar way, you have the rules for scalars, all right? And vectors also have their own calculus. So today we are going to learn most of the vector algebra. I mean, we can't learn most of the vector algebra in a single lesson. I'm saying the most of the lesson is about vector algebra, the basics of the vector algebra. And then in the following lessons, hopefully, we would be learning vector calculus. All right. So now let's learn some of vector algebra today. In a similar way, you can't add the amount of sugar, the weight of sugar plus the weight of salt. In a similar way, you cannot add a vector with a scalar. This is not allowed. This is incorrect. You can't do that. So let me explain this by an example, all right? So let's say that the example that we considered before, that we have this person north, east, south, west, who goes 30 degrees and 10 meters, and then first northeast, and then some angle, make some angle and then goes basically southeast, right? Then goes, let's say, 45 degrees southeast and ends up here. So the first segment of the journey we represent by this patch, and the second segment of the journey by this patch. And let's say that the starting point is E, and then this person goes to point F and then ends up at point G. So now if I could represent the first patch by vector A and the second patch by vector B, all right? So now first let's do the scalar sum. The scalar sum would be the distance traveled from E to F plus the distance traveled from F to G. All right. And that would give me, would it give me the distance between E to G? Right? So this is the distance that the person travels when that person gets from E to G. But if I add the vectors A, which the vector A represents the first segment and vector B represents the second segment, what I get is vector C. All right. Even if I ignore the direction for the time being, the length that C represents is never equal to EG, is it? Because C represents this length and the scalar addition of these distances represents this distance. So that's why we have specific rules of adding vectors. We cannot use the scalar rules of vector addition. So there's a separate rule for vector addition. And of course, the first rule is that when we add two vectors, like here, we get another vector, C. And if you want to graphically understand it, so the rule is that if we have two vectors, we take the first vector and then we join the tail of the second vector with the head of the first vector without changing their directions or their lengths. And then finally, we draw a vector from the tail of the first vector to the head of the second vector, and that gives us the resultant vector, C. This is the first rule of vector addition. So for example, if I add a vector to itself, I get simply twice that vector, because a vector A added to itself is just another vector pointing in the same direction, but of twice the magnitude. So this is if you add a vector to itself. Now, in simple algebra or in simple arithmetics, we have, for example, if we have 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3, we can always write it 4 times 3, right? So multiplication is nothing but a short form of addition. In a similar way, if we have addition in vectors, there must be a way to multiply scalars with vectors. And here you see an example. So if you have a vector A and you multiply a scalar with it, so this would be what this, so 5A would be 5 times bigger vector with larger length in the same direction as A. Both A and 5A would have the same direction, just different lengths. Just imagine that I've joined 5 vectors, 1, 2, 3, and so on, and made a bigger vector. So that's the vector addition. So that allows us scalars being multiplied with vectors. So this is an allowed operation. You can multiply a scalar with a vector. So this is the second rule of vector calculus. And this is quite general. So you can multiply any number basically with A. But as I said before, you can't, be careful, you can't add a scalar to a vector. This is incorrect. So since we can add vectors, we should also be able to subtract vectors. So how about this? But sorry, before I do that, let me introduce the concept of zero. For example, in normal arithmetics, we have 3 plus 0 equals 3. So there must be something equivalent in the vector algebra as well. But as we just learned that we can't add a scalar to a vector. So what we can do is we need to come up with a null vector denoted by 0 with an arrow. So this is quite interesting concept. So it's a null vector, but nevertheless it's a vector. The important property that it has is that if you add it into a vector, you get the vector back, right? So this is another important property. So that we need to define a zero vector or a null vector. And we need to do that because only then we can define difference between two vectors. All right. So first, let me say here, since we said that we could multiply a number with a vector, that would give us another vector, b, a different vector. And the only difference between b and a is that b is larger. So we can also multiply -1 with a. All right. So then we would have minus a. Pictorially, it only means if a is pointing in this direction, minus a is exactly pointing in the opposite direction. All right. Physically, it means if you travel in a particular direction, a certain amount of distance, and then you reverse, you trace back your steps to the same point in a straight line, so you have not traveled anything. So that would be a plus adding. So now subtraction is just like adding two vectors. It's another vector just pointing in this direction, a and a minus. So if I add these two vectors, a and a minus, I get the null vector. So this is what null vector means, going nowhere. So we also, and that gives us, so we basically now have subtraction. So you can subtract a vector from another vector, any vector from another vector. Addition and subtraction is not allowed between scalars and vectors. Multiplication, however, is allowed. So far, we have not talked about the coordinate system of vectors. And it's very important to understand or to point out that vectors are in fact independent of a coordinate system. You don't really need to have a coordinate system for a vector to make sense. Vectors make sense, have meaning without a coordinate system. However, if you are to manipulate vectors to perform all these algebraic operations on a vector, it's far more easier, and sometimes it's not even possible without a coordinate system, that you need to define a coordinate system and express a vector in a given coordinate system. So let's bring in a coordinate system, of course. So we have x-axis or horizontal axis and the vertical or y-axis. So if we have a vector in the coordinate system, going here in the coordinate system means traveling in the direction of x a certain amount and then traveling along the direction of y a certain amount. And these pieces, this one and this one, they form the components of the vector in this coordinate system. These are the components. This distance here, this is x component, and this is the y component. All right. But to make sense of the components and do the algebra, because there is, we just discussed the vector scalar multiplication. At some point we would be doing vector vector multiplication, and vector vector multiplication is also very special and very different from ordinary multiplication. And there are in fact two types of vector multiplication. So when you perform those algebraic processes, what happens is that you basically work with the coordinate system, you work with the components of a vector, and you need to have a proper construction that I'm going to introduce now. Otherwise you won't be able to perform those very easily. So to denote that, what is a, for example, let's say that you go 5 meters in this direction and 6 meters in this direction. Now you've gotten two numbers. Now, if I just express these two numbers, this is not enough, because I do not know which of the numbers is in the horizontal direction, which component is in the horizontal direction, and which component is in the vertical direction. To actually make sense of these, we introduce what is called unit vectors. Or if you are already taking linear algebra, you may learn these terms as bases, unit vectors or bases. So unit vectors would tell us that if you're going 5 meters, we denote them like this, and with a hat to indicate that they have unit magnitude. A unit vector has a direction. A unit vector has a particular direction, any direction basically. Let's call it A. But its magnitude, its length is always 1. That is what a unit vector is. Unit vector is just like any other vector. The only special thing about it is that it is of exactly 1 unit length. But this is more special. If you have a unit vector in x-axis, that is a bit special. So we call it Ex, for example, here, and we denote it with with a hat. Okay, so E and the hat indicates that it's a unit vector, and X tells me that it's a unit vector in the X direction. In a similar way, we can have a unit vector in y-axis. And now if I write this vector, 5 meters Ex plus 6 meters Ey, okay, and equals a vector that we have it here, this vector A.
सर
जी
सर ये यूनिट वेक्टर अगर उसका मैग्नीट्यूड 1 होता है तो फिर 5 मीटर और 6 मीटर क्या है?
किसका मैग्नीट्यूड 1 होता है? तो
यूनिट वेक्टर का अगर आपने कहा
हाँ 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 बिल्कुल, देखें ना,
होता है।
ठीक है। तो अब देखें, अगर मेरे पास एक वेक्टर है, ठीक है, ए, इसका कोई मैग्नीट्यूड है जिसको मैं स्केलर ए से रिप्रेजेंट करता हूं, ठीक है। अब अगर मैं इसको 5 से मल्टीप्लाई करूं, ठीक है, तो इसका मैग्नीट्यूड अब क्या हो जाएगा? 5 टाइम्स ए, राइट?
जी सर।
तो इनका अपना मैग्नीट्यूड जो है वो तो 1 है, लेकिन मैं एक स्केलर तो इसके साथ मल्टीप्लाई कर सकता हूँ ना यूनिट वेक्टर के साथ।
अच्छा,
तो
ठीक हो गया सर।
दैट वुड बी ए एक्स, ठीक है, ए एक्स another vector a x and this vector here a x, और इसी तरह this is another vector
सर
a y, all right, and the sum of these two vectors is the resultant vector a। जी
सर फिर ये एक्स और वाई की के अलावा भी कोई डायरेक्शन हो सकती है यूनिट वेक्टर की?
जी बिल्कुल, कोई भी हो सकती है, आर्बिट्रेरी यूनिट वेक्टर हो सकता है।
तो वो किस रिप्रेजेंट करेंगे? जैसे अब आपने बीच वाला यूनिट वेक्टर बनाया है जो y इज इक्वल टू x की तरह जा रहा है,
जी बिल्कुल, ऐसे यूनिट वेक्टर हो सकते हैं। यू कैन डिफाइन ए
तो
यूनिट
उसको
वेक्टर एनीवे। अब देखें ना, किसी वेक्टर पे ऑर्डिनरी वेक्टर पे मैग्नीट्यूड 1 होने की कोई पाबंदी तो नहीं है।
नहीं सर, वो फिर उसको रिप्रेजेंट कैसे करेंगे? ई हैट और फिर y इज इक्वल टू x इस तरह लिख देंगे?
आप ना रिप्रेजेंट करें, आप उसे ए वेक्टर ही लिख लें, क्या मसला है इसमें?
तो
जब हम मैग्नीट्यूड फाइंड
तो
आउट करेंगे तो 1 आ जाएगा, सो व्हाट।
सही है, तो यूनिट वेक्टर नहीं रहेगा फिर, उसको ई हैट की तरह नहीं लिखेंगे हम जो आपने लिखा था?
नहीं नहीं, ये ना आप ऐसे बात करें, लिखने से कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता, यूनिट वेक्टर ही रहेगा। मैग्नीट्यूड जो यूनिट है, दैट्स द ओनली क्राइटेरिया।
सर तो
ये भी
व्हेन डू
यूनिट
वी
वेक्टर,
यूज ई, ये और ये वाला कब यूज करते हैं ई हैट? व्हेन डू वी यूज दैट स्पेसिफिकली?
ये कोऑर्डिनेट सिस्टम की डायरेक्शंस में करते हैं।
अच्छा, सिर्फ x और y के लिए हम यूज करते
ये स्पेशल है, ये स्पेशल इसलिए है ना, देखें 3 डायमेंशन में ना एक यूनिट वेक्टर लें आप। अच्छा सवाल है वैसे, कि एक यूनिट वेक्टर जैसे भी मैंने बनाया था, ठीक है, ये मेरा यूनिट वेक्टर है, इसमें कोई मसला नहीं है।
हैं?
आप इसे ई लिखें, आप इसे ए लिखें, आप इसे ए एरो लिखें, ए हेड लिखें, जो मर्जी लिखें, ठीक है। लेट्स सी, इसको हम ई लिख देते हैं, ठीक है। ये 2 डायमेंशनल है, तो अब मुझे पता नहीं है इसके कंपोनेंट्स, ये इसकी लेंथ का तो मुझे पता है कि ये 1 है, इसका मैग्नीट्यूड तो मुझे पता है, ठीक है ना। अच्छा, एक और चीज मैं यहाँ बता दूं, मैं मैग्नीट्यूड ऐसे लिखते हैं किसी वेक्टर का, ये सिंबॉलिकली, ये तो मुझे पता है कि 1 है, ठीक है।
Yes,
या
sir.
हैट के बगैर भी मैग्नीट्यूड लिख देते हैं, यानी ए से भी मैग्नीट्यूड लिख सकते हैं, ए से, ये यहाँ पे सिर्फ ई से, ठीक है। अब ये तो हमें पता है कि इसका मैग्नीट्यूड 1 है, ठीक है। लेकिन आप देख सकते हैं पिक्चर के ऊपर भी, इसका एक कंपोनेंट एक्स के अलोंग होगा, होगा ना,
Yes, sir.
और एक कंपोनेंट वाई के अलोंग होगा, ठीक है।
ठीक
तो
है।
अगर मैं ई को लिखूं इस तरह से, ठीक है, तो इसका कोई लेट से अल्फा, मुझे नहीं पता क्या है अल्फा, अब इसके साथ मैं लिख देता हूं कि अल्फा एक्स है, ठीक है। अभी मैं वो यूनिट वेक्टर वो वाले नहीं यूज कर रहा, इसको कह रहा हूँ अल्फा एक्स, बस ये काफी है, ठीक है। और इस तरह लिख देता हूँ, और अल्फा वाई है कि ये इसका एक्स कंपोनेंट है, ये एक्स का वाई कंपोनेंट है, ठीक है ना। आ रही है बात
Yes, sir.
समझ?
जी
अब
सर।
अगर ये है आम एक यूनिट वेक्टर, ठीक है, जब मैं इस वेक्टर को इस तरह से लूं कि ये एक्स के अलोंग पॉइंट कर रहा हो, तो फिर क्या होगा, ये
E hat
ई
x.
ई का जो है ना, सिर्फ अल्फा एक्स वाला कंपोनेंट नॉन जीरो होगा, वाई वाला कंपोनेंट जीरो होगा, क्योंकि वाई के अलोंग तो उसका कोई है ही नहीं कुछ हिस्सा।
सही।
इसको फिर हम ई एक्स कह देते हैं, ई हैट एक्स, दिस इज स्पेशल because
ठीक
it
है।
points the same in the same direction as the x-axis of the coordinate system। इसी
ठीक है।
तरह ये कोई वेक्टर है, मैं इसको इस तरह से इसको पोजीशन करता हूं इधर y के अलोंग, ठीक है, कि इसका जो है x कंपोनेंट 0 है और y कंपोनेंट जो है वो नॉन जीरो है, तो इसको फिर मैं कह देता हूं ये। otherwise you can have a general unit vector in any direction you like।
सही है, थैंक यू
ठीक,
सर।
तो ये देखें, ये कंपोनेंट्स हो गए ए एक्स, ये कंपोनेंट हो गया ए वाई, ठीक है। और इसको यूं भी लिख सकते हैं, अब ये तो मैंने किसी खास वैल्यू के लिए लिखा है ना, 5 मीटर 6 मीटर, यूं भी तो लिख सकते हैं। the magnitude of the component in x direction represented by a, simple a without the vector sign. Okay. And then to make sure that this much magnitude is pointing, this is the x component pointing in the x direction. Okay. Now carefully look at all two of these two ways of writing it. You could just write the vector in x direction, a sub x, and the vector in the y direction, a sub y, or you can write the magnitude ax, but then you need a unit vector. This total is a vector ax, and this total, a constant multiplied by a unit vector, is a normal vector, a non-unit vector. Okay. ठीक है. Another important point, this does not really matter for this vector, for the vector to have its tail at the origin. Okay. A vector can be anywhere in the coordinate system as long as two things do not change about the vector, its magnitude and its direction. So long as you have the same magnitude and the same direction, this vector A, if it is written in a coordinate system like this, no difference. This is still the same vector. Okay, as long as it's, although I have ended up changing its direction, but let's say that it is pointing, it has the same angle if you draw a horizontal line here. So as long as you do not change its direction or magnitude, a vector doesn't have always to have its tail at the origin. All right. And once you have specified the components of a vector like this, then you can calculate the magnitude, this length which we represent with a modulus, then you can calculate from the components like this. So if this is the vector ax ey, then ax squared plus ay squared square root, and that would give you a, the magnitude. And you can see that geometrically as well. Forget about that you have vectors here. If this length is ax and this length is ay, what is the length a?
पाइथागोरस के हिसाब से वो बेसिकली हाइपोटेन्यूज स्क्वायर इक्वल्स टू a square equals to b square plus c square.
Yes, thank you. Yes. A square is equal to ax squared plus ay squared, and Pythagoras takes us to this result. Okay, so if you are given the components of a vector, you can calculate its magnitude like this. Another important results from here. Now, if you look at this figure, for example, and see what is ax over ax. Are you familiar with this quantity? A over ax, no, sorry, it's the other way around, sorry. It should be ax over a. Are you familiar with this quantity?
No, sir.
Cos of theta.
If this angle is theta.
Cosine.
cosine and ay over a is sine, right? And do you mind if I take the a on the other side and multiply it? All right. So this gives you the relationship. If you know the components, you can find the magnitude using Pythagoras theorem. And if you know the vector, the magnitude of the vector and its direction specified by theta or theta, you can calculate ax. You can calculate the individual components. They are related to the vector and its direction through this relationship, ax and ay. And you can test it. For example, you can, if you have ax equal to a cosine theta and ay a sine, and if you take the picture here, so let's say if theta is 0, what would be the x component then?
A.
Equals to a, and cosine 0 is 1. So the vector would be pointing, the whole a vector would be pointing in the x direction, okay? And the component along y would be 0. You can also test it for other values of theta, and that would make sense. Theta 0, theta 9, that these components or decomposition also always works. This is when you decompose or resolve a vector into its components. So if you know the vector and its direction, you can find the components, and if you know the components, you can find the vector. So before we talked about the vector addition without specifying the components, and now we are going to talk about vector addition using the component description. So let's say so we have a vector A and another vector B. All right. Now, pictorially, A plus B they would be, A plus B would be this vector. All right. And let's call this resultant vector C. Now, if you don't want to actually, so just look at the picture. This is AX, the X component of vector A, and this would be BX, the B component of vector B. And in a similar way, this is AY, the Y component of vector A, and this would be BY, the Y component of vector B. But just now let's look at the C vector, this vector. Is the color discernible, by the way, of the blue chalk? So you have BY and you have AY. And if you look at the X component of C vector, So that would be Cx here and Cy here. So if you have, so what does that mean? It means Cx is equal to Ax plus Bx. And Cy is equal to Ay plus By. So if you are given two vectors, if you're given two vectors, let's say in their components, like Ax plus Ay, all right, and another vector B in their components, Bx so when you add these vectors, you basically add the x component of the first vector to the x component of the second vector, and that gives you the x component of the resultant vector. So it becomes Ax plus Bx, and that would be Ex, and Ay plus By times Ey in the y direction. So this is when you need to add vectors actually. So you always need a coordinate system and you need to know the components, and then you can do meaningful manipulation of the vectors.
सर वो EY नहीं होगा?
ठीक है
ऐड करने के बाद सी निकल आएगा ना इससे?
जी जी, ये ऊपर देखे ना, ये Cx है ये सारा, और ये Cy है, ठीक है, तो ये हमारे पास इधर C आ जाएगा, Cx Ex प्लस Cy, ठीक है।
सर CX तो BX AX प्लस BX रहेगा, वो BY नहीं होगा जो सबसे ऊपर है CX.
Okay, okay, okay. So I overcorrected then. ठीक है, thank you. ठीक है।
सर ये EX और EY का बेसिक किस चीज को डिनोट कर रहे हैं?
को क्या?
सर जो EX और EY है वो किस चीज को डिनोट कर रहे हैं?
Ex तो है ही नहीं। कौन सी चीज की बात कर रहे हैं?
सर ये जो लास्ट लाइन है C is equals to CX EX plus CY EY.
ये तो यूनिट वेक्टर्स है ना?
Oh, sir.
Hmm?
Can we use I hat and J hat for unit vector?
जी?
Can we use I hat and J hat for unit vector?
All right, sorry. Yes, 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 yes. It's fine. So if you are used to using I hat, J hat, K hat, that's also fine. It's just a symbol, okay? So in that case, E hat X is equal to I hat. They are one and the same thing. Y hat, J hat, and EZ hat is equal to K hat. That's also fine. Yes. No worries. If you like working with I, J, K, you can always use them with hats in place of E, X hat, E, Y hat. This notation is more general, but it's fine if you like to use I, J, K. And we would have some more rules on E, X hat, E, Y hat, and probably E, Z hat. So whenever you are confused, don't need to be confused. Whenever you are, whatever rules we would learn about E in these unit vectors in this notation, they apply to the to IJK notation as well.
Okay. Sir,
जी
CY is equal to AY plus BY नहीं होगा left side पे?
जी
CY is equal to AY plus BY.
Oh,
अपन
yes.
BX लिखा है।
Yes. Sorry. Overcorrection of the overcorrection. अब ठीक है.
जी सर, अब सही है.
All right. So, and then by the way, this is general. You can add any number of vectors if you have by just adding their components. All right. So now we're going to introduce a special vector. Although I said a few moments ago that the vector can be drawn anywhere and its tail doesn't have to be attached to the origin, but the position vector is a special vector. This vector would not make sense unless its tail is attached to the origin of the coordinate system. And this is what it means when I say the position vector. So if you have an object, all right, and a vector drawn to the position of object from the origin of the coordinate system, that's the very definition of the position vector. And usually it's denoted by R vector, all right? So a vector drawn from the origin of the coordinate system to the position of an object at any moment in time is a position vector. So it doesn't matter if the object is here or if 5 minutes later the object is here. So let's actually consider this situation. Let's say that this object few moments later is here, is following this trajectory, and the object is here. Now that would be the position vector, or that would be the position, a vector pointing to this new position would be the next position vector. So let's say that if we call the first position A and the second position as B, and call the position vector that is pointing to the first position as RA, and the position vector pointing to the second position as RB. It's very interesting. The difference of these two vectors would give me the displacement. So the change or difference or the change of the position vector, RB minus RA, that is what is displacement. All right. And now you see the displacement is a vector quantity. And if you look at this figure pictorially, this would be the displacement, the shortest distance between 2 points. This is also important that this curve indicates the distance traveled by the object. And this arrow here, which is nothing but the difference of RB and RA, is the displacement. And now this vector displacement is independent of the coordinate system.
अरे R लेटर वाला R लिख रहे हैं, कोई और सिंबल है ये?
ये R जो आपका अल्फाबेट है लोअर केस, मेरी हैंड राइटिंग
वो
ऐसी है।
सही नजर नहीं आ रहा था इसलिए, वरना वो मुझे भी कंफ्यूज हो गया।
अच्छा कोई बात
बस
नहीं,
ठीक है।
ये वाला R जो मेरी हैंड राइटिंग की वजह से ये वाला ठीक है। I think the camera is too slanted, that's why.
Yes sir, वही वही बचा।
तो ये समझ आ गई, displacement is nothing but the change in the position vector. ठीक है, that's the displacement. And this displacement, which is a vector itself, this doesn't have to be attached to the origin of the coordinate system. The position vector, the very definition of the position vector is that it's a vector pointing to the where the object is from origin. Okay. Now, one last concept that we want to learn today. I talked about representing physical quantities, and here you see we have ended up getting a physical quantity in terms of a vector. All right. So we talked about this. The physical quantities, doesn't matter which coordinate system you measure them in, are the same, right? So if you measure a physical quantity, let's say you measure the distance between Karachi and Lahore from a space station, or from a satellite, or from a mountain top, or just by walking the whole distance yourself, that distance remains the same, right? So so vectors, particularly when we have to associate, or when we have to use them to represent physical quantities, they have to have another important property. That's why I said in the very beginning that vector is not just that is defined by two numbers, or vector is not just which has a direction and a magnitude. It should be invariant under coordinate transformation. Now that's very heavy language, but don't worry. A vector has to be invariant. What that means is that if we have a vector and we have two coordinate system, the components of the vector in one coordinate, we should be able to go from the components of the vector in one coordinate system into the vector, into its components in the next coordinate system, in another coordinate system. If this transformation is correct, that is when we can allow vectors to represent our physical quantities. We are very touchy about it. All right. Okay, let's make this point more clear with a diagram, and then some arithmetic, some algebra. So let's say that an object moves from this position. Initially, it is here, represented by RA, and then it goes to another position here. And it's this, sorry, it doesn't have to be like this. And its next position is RB. All right. So this is RB. Now the displacement, this quantity here, is simply delta R RB minus RA. All right. And now we look at this displacement from another coordinate system. So let's say I have a coordinate system which is here. And I call it X prime, Y prime, all right? So first of all, let me give you something. So the position vector of the origin of my first coordinate system is capital R. All right. And now that object has a position vector in this frame as well, RA prime, the first position. RA prime. And it also has a RB prime from this coordinate system. All right. So we have RA prime and RB prime. Now from the figure, it's very clear that even from this coordinate system, when I take the difference of RA and B, I'm going to get the same distance delta R. Right? But you can make it a bit rigorous if you like. So you can say that first I start in my coordinate system X prime, the prime coordinate system, and go to the origin of the first coordinate system by traveling or by going along the position vector capital R. And then from the origin, you go to the position A plus RA. This is prime, okay? And then you can also in a similar way say, to go to position B, instead of going directly, you first go to the origin with this vector capital R, uppercase R, and then go to the position B in the old coordinate system. So you have a relationship. So we have RA prime equals to uppercase R plus RA, and we have R prime B equals to uppercase R plus RA. All right. Now, if you take the difference now, RB
प्लीज दोबारा समझा सकते हैं?
minus RA, what you are going to get is again RB minus RA. So the change in the position vector in one frame is equal to the change in position vector in another frame, because the R cancels. The vector between the two axes or the two coordinate system cancels, right? And that is why the displacement vector remains the same irrespective of which coordinate system you are measuring it. जी अब क्या सवाल था, दोबारा बताएं.
एक तो मुझे ये पूछना था कि इसमें जो कैपिटल आर वाला वेक्टर है वो किधर है?
Oh sorry, yes, वो इस कोऑर्डिनेट सिस्टम की तरफ है.
तो बेसिकली कैपिटल आर वाला जो वेक्टर है वो दोनों कोऑर्डिनेट्स के ओरिजिन्स को मिला रहा है.
बिल्कुल.
अच्छा, अब मुझे ये जो आपने एंड में 2-3 लाइंस लिखी ना जिनमें इन दोनों का रिलेशन है, प्लीज दोबारा से एक्सप्लेन करते हैं, मुझे सही से समझ.
ये मैं बता रहा हूँ. देखें, आप इस कोऑर्डिनेट सिस्टम में ना, इस कोऑर्डिनेट सिस्टम में पोजीशन ए को रिप्रेजेंट करना चाहते हैं, ये वाली पोजीशन जो है, ठीक है, ये वाली पोजीशन, ये वाली ए पोजीशन इस कोऑर्डिनेट सिस्टम में, प्राइम्ड कोऑर्डिनेट सिस्टम में, ठीक है. तो एक तरीका तो ये है कि मैंने डायरेक्ट ये वेक्टर बना दिया है ना, यहां से शुरू किया है उस पोजीशन पे, और उसको मैं कह रहा हूं आर ए प्राइम, ठीक है. लेकिन ये आर ए प्राइम ऐसे भी तो लिख सकते हैं ना इसको, कि आप आर ए प्राइम से जाएं इस ओरिजिन पे, ठीक है, कनेक्ट करें दो कोऑर्डिनेट सिस्टम को, तो इस तक इसका मतलब यू हैव ट्रांसफॉर्म्ड योरसेल्फ इनटू दिस कोऑर्डिनेट सिस्टम, एंड देन द रिमेनिंग इज जस्ट आर ए. That gives you RA prime equals to R capital uppercase plus RA. ये, और फिर इनको आप सब्ट्रैक्ट करें तो जो पोजीशन वेक्टर का डिफरेंस है प्राइम्ड कोऑर्डिनेट में is equal to the difference of the position vectors in the unprimed coordinate. That's the point I want to make.
सही, थैंक यू सर.
RB प्राइम के अंदर और कैपिटल R प्लस RB प्राइम नहीं, RB नहीं होना चाहिए RB प्राइम के सेकंड लाइन आपकी.
जी थैंक यू. बिल्कुल थैंक यू. ठीक है. Any other question about this? if you have a very pressing question, otherwise I would like to finish it, and something very important that I plan to finish today. And the most important thing that we wanted to cover today is the coordinate transformation. So this board is not it's very clearly visible. Let me see if I can go back to and just erase this. What time the class ends? How much time do we have? Ji?
4 minutes.
4 minutes.
4 minutes.
Okay. Well, then let's not start it. We'll do it in the next lesson. All right. So I'll happy to take your questions now.